Well, if you've been looking for love in all the wrong places,
I hope you don't expect me to sing.
I was waiting.
No.
This is going to be a fun episode to dish into with the relationship chef. But we are here with Krista, who has started a thriving business, and she's going to tell us how she came to, run this business and all the positive things it can bring you if you're looking for love, or if you've had love and you need to spruce it up. But tell us, Krista, tell us about the relationship chef.
Well, hey, Liss N Kristi. I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be lots of fun. The relationship chef. Wow. It's kind of a culmination of a relationship coaching business that I had started just after COVID and really enjoyed doing it, and wanted to bring my passion as a Cordon Bleu trained chef to combine the two. And it grew from there into the relationship chef, where I help couples connect and improve their connection, or rekindle their connection through the love language of food.
Well, you and I were visiting just briefly before we started, and tell us more, like Cordon Bleu Chef, tell us more about your background and, about who you are and all the things that you love and what gives you the credibility, so to speak, to say, I could help with a relationship.
Well, I went to Le Cordon Bleu in Paris when I was, 22, I guess. It was a wonderful experience. I finished first in my class, and I brought the cooking experience back to Canada and worked in restaurants and really had a lot of fun. Like, food is my passion, and it's just something that I never get tired of. I'm always focusing on the food when I go on vacations. My kids have become huge foodies.
You and I would get along great.
Right?
Is food a love language?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Definitely. So I was cooking and having a great career in cooking in my area. And then I wanted to have a family, and I couldn't imagine being pregnant, standing behind, 12 burners firing and picking up big pots of sauce and things like that. So I decided to keep the food industry first and foremost. And I went into food service sales, which I was good at, but I didn't like because I have fear of rejection. So,
Don't we all?
right. And so some people are brazen though. They just go and they are clueless, I guess.
Some people,
maybe,
I think
don't know.
it revs them up. Like, let me show you.
Right.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I stayed in the food industry for quite a while, and then I started. I continued with the sales. COVID hit. Nobody was eating out in restaurants, so sales were not needed, and I started thinking about a relationship, because somewhere along the line I had separated from my husband, was a single mom for a long time, and really didn't enjoy the dating scene and thought I would be single forever because it was so frustrating. But I met an amazing man, and we are now together. We've been together 7 years. And I still do find it so sad when I hear people say, oh, I'm giving up dating because there's nobody out there for me. And so I really wanted to help people to not feel that way, to support them and encourage them and say, no, there is somebody out there. Because, on paper, I was a gong show. I had 3 young kids. I was working, 2 or 3 jobs to try and pay the bills. Like, I was a disaster, and I still met this amazing man who incidentally didn't want anybody with kids. So you don't know where that person's going to come from. But so I wanted to help people keep that hope, find that hope. And then it just eventually evolved into, well, wait a minute, I still have this passion for food. So how can I combine the two? And then it became helping people connect through the love language of food, with curated date night adventures, doing cooking classes and amazing food, making meals.
Okay. What is your favorite dish that you found that people bond over?
It's usually a pasta for sure.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, I wrote something about this the other day. You think about Lady and the Tramp and that
Yes.
iconic scene when they're eating the spaghetti and, they're sucking on each end and their lips meet. And people seem to, I've never met anybody who doesn't like pasta. And it is such a versatile dish that if somebody says, like for instance, I'm doing cooking class that's a seafood linguine, and if you don't like seafood, I can adapt that for you to put chicken on it or something. But there's always
Who
a
doesn't
way.
like seafood? There has to be a 12-step program for people out there that don't like seafood.
Well, I mean, I'm from Nova Scotia on the
Well,
on
I
the
grew up on
East
a
Coast.
shipyard, so I mean,
Yeah.
I ate crab at least 5 days a week.
It's it's
Right.
the top of your all's pyramid food
Yeah.
group or the bottom.
Absolutely, and it's healthy and it's high in omega-3 fatty acids. Like it's a great thing, but there are actually people in the world who don't like seafood.
Okay, so walk us through. Let's just say I'm like, okay, this seems like a great date night activity. What does that? What's the process look like for me as a consumer?
Well, what I do is I have like a year-long package of cooking classes, and they drip feed to people once a month, and so they can schedule them on their own time. But the important thing is they get a package, and it's got conversation points, it's got videos for prepping, getting ready, it's got the shopping list, it's got fun food facts, and then sort of the pièce de résistance is the main cooking class video. So people book it for their night, whatever night they want to set aside. I have a little bit of an accountability tweak along with it, but they set the night aside, they get everything ready, and then when the evening comes, they prepare the meal together. They talk about the conversation points, they switch tasks back and forth, share the work, and it's just a lot of fun. And of course, it's in the privacy of their own home, so clothing is optional.
Oh, well, I was just getting ready to say, so are you live zooming in on this while they're doing that, or is it actually not?
No, I let them have their own time. The whole thing about it that I think is really magical is that you can go out to dinner to a fantastic restaurant and have an amazing meal, and it may or may not be better than what you're going to prepare at home, but you're also sitting in a room with 100 of your closest friends or not so closest friends, and it's not the same intimate environment. When you're at home and you're cooking in the kitchen, there's a kiss here and a squeeze there, inappropriate comment or whatever comes along, and it's just a time to be together. And especially when you have somebody who, in all honesty, like me, doesn't always like to cook with other people in the kitchen, it can really help that team building experience to learn to sit back and let somebody help you and share the work in the kitchen.
I think it's great. And you think sometimes about some of your fondest memories. Like for me growing up, my grandmother's love language was always food. 250 pounds of me always love language food. But, it was like sharing her secrets of how her grandmother taught her, my other grandmother taught her to roll noodles, and I'll never forget those moments. And so if you can take those lessons and put them into your romantic relationship, I can't imagine it not working.
Well, exactly. And you think about every event you have in your life, right? Whether it's a wedding or graduation, birthday, anniversary, there's always food involved.
Right.
It's sort of like a central gathering point is the food, and then it expands from there. So it seems natural to use that intentionally to grow your relationship rather than food. Dinner's a chore we have to do every night, and there are nights when I really don't want to make dinner. But when you set aside the intention to make it something special and to make it a romantic evening to share with your partner, then it becomes something completely different.
Well, so they already have to have a basis of cooking. So explain to us, so you send them the package, but what if it's somebody that's a total newbie and they don't know beyond the basics of boiling water? They don't know how to flash char kale, or, I don't know how in-depth the recipes are, but I would think it would be a little intimidating meeting somebody new. And then are you like the Butterball Turkey hotline? Can they call you and say, help, I don't know what I'm doing?
Well, the way I do it is when people sign up, they have a questionnaire they fill out with a whole bunch of questions. And of course, their cooking skill is one of them, as well as food sensitivities, that type of thing, so that I can get a feel for the client and what their needs are going to be going in. And everything can be adapted. Normally, the people who sign up are people who have a real passion for food and want to increase their skills, rather than the people who are starting from ground zero and can't boil water. but everybody who is part of the program is in the Facebook group. This is a dedicated Facebook group for it. And absolutely, there's, I might not be there 24/7, but I answer questions as quickly and promptly as I can. If somebody's having an issue, then for me, it's really important for them to be successful and feel comfortable in what they're doing.
But if you start a grease fire, don't call Krista, call 911.
Right? Exactly. There's only so much I can do.
My dad used to tell me growing up, he was quite the chef, and he used to say, look, if you know 5 recipes, good ones, by heart, and he said, you go to somebody's house and they say, oh, we don't know what we're going to do. Oh, I have a recipe. And you have some amazing thread. All you got to do is learn 5. He said, people will think you're a chef. He said, so just perfect those 5. And he said, you'll always have those tools wherever you go.
Absolutely. And the more you do something, the more you perfect it. So it does look effortless and you do look fabulous doing it. The other thing that I always like to tell people is that it's easier than you think. And I kind of call myself lazy. I'm going to find the easy way to do things. And I like to pass that on because I don't think things have to be complicated. Like one of my pet peeves is going into a restaurant and you'll have the maple glazed, miso soaked cedar planked salmon with Swiss chard and ginger potatoes and it just goes on. And it's like, oh, you lost me 15 ingredients ago. Because I think that the basics, if you have really good food and really good flavors, you combine for simple elegance and the individual flavors come through. So it doesn't have to be complicated to create a fantastic meal.
Okay, what is some of your go-tos for your basics? So in other words, if somebody was coming to learn with you and you said, I'm going to teach you a few of these things, what are some significant ingredients that you always are your go-to? And I have to know, because I have the world's biggest sweet tooth, what is your go-to dessert?
Oh, well, in terms of ingredients, my go-tos, my things that I always have around are fresh thyme, fresh chives, fresh parsley, onions and shallots, fresh garlic. Please don't ever use garlic from a jar.
Thank you.
Fresh garlic. And
garlic from a jar just always tastes pickled to me.
It does, and I don't know, the flavor's not quite the same. It's just that almost spiciness of fresh garlic that hits you is really wonderful. Another thing that I always like to teach people is I have a tomato sauce recipe, which is from canned tomatoes, and it's very traditionally Italian. But I call it a workhorse recipe because you can do so many different things. You can put a little in a cream sauce to make a rosé. You can put a little in mussels when you're making mussels marinara. You can do all sorts of things with it, and it's just a fabulous sauce, and that's a great thing to have in your arsenal. In terms of dessert, creme brulee is one of my all-time favorites.
My favorite, my go-to.
Yeah, it's a family favorite here too.
Oh.
So I'm curious of your clients, because I'm sure that you've been doing this for how long now?
3 years.
So I'm sure you have a database of clients, returning visitors. But what's the dynamic split of like newer couples versus people who've been a long time married and they're looking for ways to spice up the relationship?
It's actually a fairly even split because the younger people and the younger couples have got an interest in food. Some of them really have an interest in learning a technique, and they sort of get into the logistics, the specifics of skills and creating new recipes and combining ingredients. Whereas older couples, and I don't mean whatever age, more established couples is probably the better way to say it. They are at the age where they're thinking, oh, what are we going to do for date night? We should do a date night, but we don't want to do a date night, but we do, back and forth. And so this is pushing the easy button, right? I'm planning it all and just giving you a package that you have to follow through. So it really is kind of a split between the two. I always like to encourage people. I say, if you're a younger couple, especially if you have kids, now is a really great time to start setting the habit of spending time together rather than pushing your relationship to the side and saying, oh, the kids are taking up our time, we'll get back to this later. Because you need to nurture and grow your relationship as well as your parenting, right?
Right.
Now, is your partner and your kids all now, have they morphed into foodies, or were they before?
They have. And my partner was always, when I met him, he was a foodie, which was great. My kids, it's interesting because kids, they start out eating everything, then they go through the picky stage, then they start changing back into wanting things. And my kids are huge foodies now. And inadvertently, I have spoiled them because they'll go somewhere and they go, oh, this isn't nearly as good as yours, Mom. What did they do wrong? It's like,
Well, and I
so
think it's such an important lesson too, because we were visiting just a little bit, which I think we should get into is, like you said, how many people at the time probably that you were going through your divorce and meeting women at that 40-year mark where, hey, maybe I've kind of rediscovered myself a little bit after motherhood or once my kids were through school, and maybe my husband or my partner and I aren't the happiest, so you dissolve that relationship. And getting back out into that dating scene now, today, with all of the access to the apps and the dating apps and the swipe left, swipe right, because we see it, we're so aware that people are looking to quickly meet and find the one, but the avenues to getting to the integral part of who a person is are kind of convoluted. Like, oh, they look a certain way. Like, I think that you could probably guess that you might have a good time on the first 4 to 5 dates with most of the people that you're going to meet out of the gate if you get to the place where you're going to have a first date, right? But it's the stuff that comes after that. Like, how do you handle a situation when you're frustrated? Or how do you treat your family? Or the nitty-gritty that really defines how a person is and what their moral code and character's like.
When there's no Wi-Fi.
Exactly. When there's no Wi-Fi.
That's the kicker.
All of those things. And I think, we messaged with somebody who had started a dating app that was trying to look at it from a different point of view also of how do we help people get to know who they're engaging with earlier on. And I think this would be a great lesson and a great a thing to do, to participate in, to say like, okay, this is more who I might be signing up to be in a relationship with.
Definitely, because my partner actually said when I first met him, he said, you don't really know somebody until you've traveled with them, which I can see that. I travel a lot. I get that. However, if you're just starting out getting to know somebody, travel might not be, the first thing you want to do. But that's a really valid point, is that cooking can be sort of that similar journey, right? Where things might not go exactly the way you plan. So there may be a little bit of stress. So I think that the cooking classes are a great way to spend time with somebody and get to know them a little bit more, because you're sharing tasks and you really have to work as a team. And no matter what you're doing, working in like a sports team or cooking in a kitchen or game show or anything like that, where you work as a team, you start to learn things about people. So that is a good example of how you can use it in early days of dating.
Well, and even the grocery shopping part, right? Like, let's get this list and go get this stuff together. I'll do the perimeter, you do the inside, ready, set, go.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we've all become really kind of control freaks in what we're good at. And so sometimes I think delegating those tasks is a challenge for those of us. I will go ahead and own my shit. My control ship issues is that it would be hard or a challenge for me to let somebody else help me.
Definitely. And like I said, I didn't always play well in the kitchen, even to the point where my kids didn't cook a lot with me when they were young, because they all wanted to help. And it was just, you put that in not when you're supposed to, and you put that in too fast. So I was not a great chef mom when they were younger, but I've gotten better, and I've started cooking with my partner, and I don't criticize what he does. I ask him to do things, and however he does it, he'll be saying, is this okay? Is this okay? And I'm like, as long as you chop the onions, I don't care how they're done, and I'm getting better at that. And I enjoy having him in the kitchen with me. And so that's what I want other people to work their way into is enjoying having somebody to share that space and share a task together.
I absolutely love it. And I can't imagine that this wouldn't pair perfectly with a cookbook.
That's a lot to wrap my head around, and I've been thinking about it a lot. The first idea I have for a cookbook that I want to do is an Airbnb cookbook. So,
Love that idea.
right, how to make great meals when all you have is a frying pan, a spoon, and a colander. So,
Well, I honestly have to tell you, like last night, I was in the kitchen and I thought, okay, I haven't been to the grocery store in like 2.5 weeks. So closing in out of fresh items, right? But I looked around, I thought, I don't want to grocery shop because we're getting ready to move Sinclair's daughter into school and we're not going to be here for a minute. And I looked around and I was like, well, there's an acorn squash. I know there's some frozen ground beef for Kristi. And there's some frozen, meat alternative for me. An apple, a clove of garlic. So the next thing you know, I've made, for her, it was like a bacon fat maple glazed apples mixed with ground beef, garlic, shallots, ginger, a little miso paste, and then put into a roasted butternut squash that was basted with a little bit of butter. And I gave it to her and she was like, where'd you find this recipe? Now, she could have been completely bullshitting me, which would have been okay.
No,
but,
was
to
very
go
good.
into the kitchen
sounds
and
amazing.
just kind of get lost in the creativity aspect too. I read the other day the opposite, I have to go back and find it. It's like the opposite of depression is expression. And that expression is often creativity because it's not just about fixing the depression with a pill or a button. You need to express yourself to let out whatever it is that's holding you back. And for me, growing up the way that I did, I can't see any better way to do that than in the kitchen.
Definitely. I mean, there's so many possibilities. And it's funny, I have a friend who I travel with a lot, and my family has a house in France, so that's often where we go. And at the end of our time, we're always the last night opening the fridge and going, we've got to use everything in here. What are we going to do with it? And we've had all sorts of really interesting and fun things. There's usually a charcuterie board along with some sort of other dish that's just using up those bits and bobs, whatever we can't freeze. Feels like a crime against humanity to freeze fresh goat cheese. So, we have to use that. And so we very much do that, get in the habit of the empty out the fridge and use everything you can, and then take the leftovers on the road with you to the airport the next day type of thing. So
well, I think too that even with all this social media influential, like I think cooking and food in itself, like that foodie era, has really had a resurgence in like probably the last 10 years.
Yes.
Because now all these restaurants are realizing, hey, if we can show the creative aspect of how this dish was prepared, the beautiful display of what it looks like, and we can drive customers into the store because they can visually taste it, but they want to taste it. There's so much more emphasis now on being able to start like a small kitchen or a restaurant. And I feel like these pop-up places, like I lived in Louisville for 4 years. Louisville has a fantastic food scene that I feel like trumps kind of sometimes a lot of the bigger cities, even because you have people who have more financially accessible business opportunities than say somebody in San Francisco. So, you go into all those little niche places and you find like that little chef's kitchen where somebody's just passionate and cooking, but that thrill of the taste has become a really, like I was watching this little boy the other day and his mom had made him meatballs and he was like, wow, Mom, this meatball. But like the emphasis on how good real food can be prepared in the right way and getting out of that hamburger helper phase that I think the 90s put us into.
Definitely. It's funny you mentioned that. I used to, when my kids were little, I used to make them tuna helper. And that was their thing. And they loved it, right? It was comfort food. I was capable of more, but this is what they wanted. And when we would go to France with my dad would want to cook, leg of lamb or something, whatever. And the kids would want tuna helper. But of course, in France, I couldn't find tuna helper. So I learned to invent tuna helper. And so,
I just have to know,
thing.
Did you put potato chips on top like my mom did?
I did not. No, I didn't bake it. I cooked it all and made it warm and threw it on the plate. And they loved it, right? They learned to appreciate that. But it is taking a concept and turning it into your own, recreating it, and knowing that whatever you do, I believe you put a little love into it and some good ingredients, it's always going to be great.
Right. And I think, we're all more aware today of the what the food epidemic has done to the health of the general population. And if you can get back, like you said, to it's simple ingredients, it's real food. Like I think Haagen-Dazs launched a line one time that it was like 5 is maybe what it was called, because there was just 5 ingredients that went into making this ice cream. And it was, you turn around and look at the back of a label on something, it's like, how many things went into making something? It doesn't have to be a laundry list long to taste delicious. The simplest, purest, most beneficial food items that are actually meant to fuel us can be the most delicious.
Exactly. And I think a lot of that came from originally, I could be wrong, but I think a lot of that came from allowing things to be preserved and to last longer, right? To increase its stability. But maybe the Europeans have it right where they go marketing every day. And I know that some people, that is their idea of torture, going shopping every day. But going once or twice a week at least, so that you're getting the fresh ingredients and you're not, you don't need something that's going to stay in your cupboard or your fridge for 3.5 weeks. You're doing it on a fresher, daily, more inspirational basis.
But look, you're in France or Italy, you go out and it's the bread maker, it's the cheese makers. Then you go by the
wine shop.
The wine shop, exactly. They have, and you never see obesity. I mean, like the French
and they're
women,
far more active.
Right? And you're like, okay, how are they eating all that cheese and bread? And I've seen this also new resurgence on Instagram, the sourdough starter kit.
Oh, this whole sourdough thing is off the charts.
Why did that take
Yeah.
off? I'm behind the times.
Why did that
I think
take
people are just experimenting with they appreciate a good, heavy, flavorful bread like that, and it's a bit of a trick to do the mother and get it all started. So people want to experiment, I think,
Well, and I also
learn a new
think that
trick.
there's, because you just said yesterday that on TikTok, one of the most viral trending things was budget meals.
Right.
And I think just knowing what I spend going to the grocery store shopping, I can't imagine what families of 5 and 6 are spending when they go to the grocery store trying to prepare food for children who are now often conditioned to be picky eaters. We know that the school supplies aren't offering like the most culinary diversive palette, for these kids. So just educating people. But I think the sourdough and the at home, and people are figuring out, like, if we want to have a sustainable life to a certain degree, we're going to have to be really creative. And that means a garden. That means creating, making and baking, and also realizing that's how you can have control about what you're feeding your family, is if you know exactly what goes into it. And I think social media has created more of an education about what that opportunity allows us to do.
Which is kind of interesting, right? It's come full circle from a few years ago when the younger generation, like I'm going to say the 20 and 30s, were eating out all the time because that was all they wanted to do, and they didn't know how to cook. But now they're taking much more of an interest in cooking. They want to learn how to cook things. And, I have the most surprising people sitting down asking me questions. My daughter, who's 25, her boyfriend is into cooking, and I buy him cookbooks and cooking supplies for Christmas, and we talk food all the time. And it's interesting to see the younger people coming around and wanting to do more of this.
But isn't it refreshing and appreciative? I mean,
Oh, it is.
Well, think about it. I was born in '84, so I feel like I was of the era of the TV dinner. Like that's when the TV dinner became huge. And I have an ingrained memory from 4 years old. My mom had made me a TV dinner. I had my metal TV tray, and I'm sitting there watching my program or whatever. I'd eaten probably the, if you can call that potatoes, and the corn part, and then you get to that whatever Salisbury
Brownie
steak.
thing.
I can't even talk
Salisbury.
about it. And I think I tried to chew it, and it had been over nuked, so it was space food, right? And my mom was like, "You're not getting up, and you're not going to play until you eat that." And I was like, "Concentration camping, I guess, because I cannot chew it. I'll be here all day." And I want to say my grandmother came over a few hours later, and she said, "What is this child doing on the floor?" And she went to try and eat that Salisbury steak, and she couldn't cut it, and she just let my mom have it. But so many people can relate to the microwavable meal, the Hungry Man, all of that, and Lunchables. Lunchables became huge. Just quick, easy, fast access. Ship them out the door in the lunchbox and go.
Oh yeah, that's why they're saying the 20 and 30 somethings like charcuterie boards so much because they're adult Lunchables, right?
Yeah, they're grown up. They're grown up Lunchable kids. Went from
Yeah.
latchkey kids to Lunchables
Well,
to
now
now
they're
they're big.
doing fancy Lunchables, like they now have salami in there and maybe.
What was it that my daughter the other day was like? You have bougie lunch.
Oh, yes. I had bought at the grocery store, there was the little rice crackers and I would think like a dill pate sauce in there and it had smoked salmon. And I thought, okay, that's a quick, easy thing that I know it looks better than the other stuff. And so they hadn't even been open. They were in the fridge. And Sinclair comes over and she was like, wait, what's this rich people food? And what are you talking about? She goes, a smoked salmon Lunchable? She said, I only want to arrive at life someday knowing that I can send my kid to school with a smoked salmon Lunchable. And then you launched into your, she's like, I sent a private chef to your school. And she's like, Mom, I wasn't trying to one up you.
It's true. I quite often for my partner, I will make his lunch and I have like it's plastic, but it's like a bento box sort of. And I do a little charcuterie board for him and he takes it to work and everybody looks at him and goes, man, your girlfriend's a chef, isn't she? And it's like,
Well,
yeah,
you.
yeah. But it's
But
easy.
it's crazy though how little effort, and it's such a bonding tool that you can have with your loved one or your kids or your friends. And I think we all came to that realization during COVID. That, in other words, if we're
Definitely.
all going to be trapped in here together, we may as well, make the best of it. And there were lots of people, friends of mine, that would have these cooking lives, or you could go on and I just have to say though, sometimes we'll go past, like I said, I grew up beyond fresh seafood. I mean, the Gulf of Mexico was my front yard. I've never eaten at a Long John Silver. I've never
Nor
eaten
have
at
I.
a Taco Bell.
I've never eaten a red lobster.
Oh, my father would have beat me within an inch of my life.
That's where we celebrated my 18th birthday. That was my big fancy dinner to adulthood.
But I mean, it's just, in other words, when you grow up in that industry, and 1,000 years before I was born, my family were fishermen. They were shrimpers. So when you grow up with that, there's nothing they can import from China to put in that recipe that's going to rock your world.
No.
And it's just, it doesn't matter how hungry I am. We were somewhere and they said the only thing open is Taco Bell. And I said, I guess I'll starve. I mean,
Yeah.
but I think my daughter's only eaten at McDonald's once. I told her when she was little, she goes, Mommy, what is that thing? My best friend and I were driving with our girls. She goes, what is that thing with those yellow? I said, I think they traffic children.
nice. Way
You
to
don't want any
discourage them.
part of
It's
that.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true. And my kids really appreciate good food. We were away last week and we just got back. A large group of us, because one of my daughters was competing in the Olympics. I'm sorry, I have to say that.
What?
Can we have a moment?
Pause. One of your daughters was competing in the Olympics?
Yeah, so we were
Okay,
all in
wait.
Paris
She wasn't
last
the
week.
break dancer, was she?
No. No. Oh, I saw her today. I don't even know what to say about that.
God bless her.
But so we were all in Paris for the Olympics last week, and one of my daughters, my other daughter, has been on exchange for 6 months, and she met us there, and then we all came home. And since I saw her, I spent 10 days in Italy with her just a couple weeks ago, and I saw her when she was on exchange a couple times. She's visiting with her dad for a couple days before she goes back to Toronto to university, and she wanted to come out and have me cook something for her. And I said, what do you want? And she said, will you make me seafood chowder? And I'm like, sure. It's not really a summer thing, and it's
Right.
85 degrees, and I don't want to turn the oven on to make you tea biscuits, but I absolutely will. And this is what they want. This is what she appreciates. She's not looking to go out to dinner. She doesn't want anything else. She's has the opportunity to spend time with mom. Mom is making one of those things that she grew up with, that's natural food and real
Right.
food and fresh and delicious, and that's what my kids gravitate towards.
Okay, so now you can't leave us hanging. What was your daughter's event?
It's canoe sprint. She did women's kayak. So it's a flat water kayak, and it's not huge in the US, pretty big in Canada. It's really big in Europe. And yeah, so she was competing in a single man boat, a K1, and the 4-man, which is a K4. So it was
How
pretty
did they
exciting.
do?
She made it in K1. She made it to one of the finals, which was great. It was the C final. She had hoped to be in the B final. It's her first Olympics, so she's still pretty young, but we're still really, really excited about that. And for the K4, they are 10th in the world, so that's nothing to sneeze at.
Wow.
Good for her. Congratulations. What's her name?
Riley.
Congratulations to Riley. That is so, so impressive. And kudos to you, Mom.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. It was so exciting. The whole time I turned to my boyfriend and say, we're at the Olympics. We're watching. Look at Riley's out there. We're at the Olympics. And you go, I know.
Well, I think what a creative, expressive family that you have, and how incredible. I mean, I'm sure your other two children are doing great things themselves. Does anybody want to go in the food business?
My son wanted to, and I kind of discouraged him.
Really?
It's a tough business. It's not for the faint of heart, because it is very competitive, and the food business, it's hard to make money, and there's always something new popping up, at least where we are. I mean, if he wants to travel and go other places, then for sure there's more opportunities. But
I think it has to be truly in your blood to throw everything else away. Not to that degree, but like Reagan, her husband was, really big into a restaurant and doing all of that stuff. But for their lifestyle, that's managing a restaurant is a nighttime job. You're there. So if your partner is a daytime job, and a lot of, just from watching documentaries, there's a lot of people in food service that, rely on a certain party lifestyle to maintain that work hour, that energy load, that, especially if you're in 3, 4, 5-star, whatever,
Right.
hitting it to that degree, there's a huge sacrifice that goes in, but it's the risk reward. It's that artistic creativity, expression, that thrill of watching somebody's first bite that they're looking for.
Or that my thing is, when I get something good, then I want to travel around. I'm not one of those that are bothered by people that eat off my plate, because I want to share it with everybody. But I'll walk around and go, oh my God, you have to try this. And as they're diving in, I'm the world's worst. I'll take it away and go, no, let me build your bite. Let me build it. Because you had to have one of everything. And you have to have this and that. It's all about how you build the bite.
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell listeners and viewers where they can find you.
I always send people right to my Facebook profile, because any information you need to contact me is there, and you can find out a little bit about me and have a glimpse into my life to see who I am. So
The Relationship Chef.
That's the my Facebook page for my business, but my Facebook profile is just my name, Krista Melanson, Melanson.
Okay. Well, we will send everyone there. Do you ever do do you go live cooking in the kitchen?
I do once a month. I do a live cooking class, which is just sort of a shorter version. It's usually an hour and a half, a shorter version of the date night creations, but it's still geared towards couples to come in. And it's just sort of a fun way for people to get to know me, to see if maybe they would like to cook more with me in their date nights.
Well, Christy and I are thinking about putting together a dating app. We're heavily tossing around many, many ideas, and I think this would be a lovely addition to whatever we end up coming up with. So stay tuned.
Excellent. I'd love to talk to you anytime.
All right, Krista, thank you so much.
You were amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Cheers to the Relationship Chef, and say goodnight, Lucy.
Good night, Lucy. Chef's kiss.
Thank you.